Good afternoon. You're listening to the Canvas Radio Report on WVOX AM 1460 and heard around the world on WVOX.com. This is Jack McGuirk along with Ken Kreitzer bringing you this half hour of discussion of issues related to veterans and the active military. Now, here's Ken.
Hey, thanks, Jack. Good afternoon, everyone listening to CamVets Media here on WVOX 1460. Of course, CamVets stands for Cadets, Midshipmen, Military, and Veterans that we cover proudly since 2008. And last week I got a chance to go to the American Legion Washington, D.C. Legislative Conference for the Tuesday Commander's Call, as it is known, which is a meeting led by the National Commander, Jim Triolo, who is from Rockland County, a very dedicated Legionnaire, worked his way up the ranks of local, state, and national to lead the world's largest veterans organization. And members of Congress at the meeting. So John Tester, the senator, who leads the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. And Congressman Mike Foster, who we did an interview with last year, who is now the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. And we saw Dennis McDonough, who is the secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, the world's largest healthcare organization. And one of the key topics was, there were really two key topics there. The implementation of the PACT Act, which is enables veterans who had exposure to toxic chemicals and materials and what are called burn pits. That was where they burn these awful things and would stand around watching it. And they want veterans to come into the Department of Veterans Affairs to be screened to see if they may have some potentially cancer related from this exposure. The other thing they talked about is just mental health care for veterans and trying to find more ways to help prevent veteran suicide. There were 3 speakers on that, maybe 4, talking about how important it is. And a lot of it is reaching out, having veterans ask for help, eliminate the stigma. And this is coming from Secretary of the VA, from the National Commander of the American Legion, from members of Congress. And so one of the ways is to reach out to the Department of Veterans Affairs for care. There's all sorts of remedies, but number one is just talking to people and having veterans counsel other veterans on what to do. In the second segment, we're going to hear one of the speakers, and I thought it was very notable, was the ambassador of Ukraine to the United States, Oksana Marakova. Very articulate, very warm talk, very appreciative. So we're going to hear that talk in the second segment. Jack, you got a lot of work there, a lot of stories.
Yeah, we'll start off with Ukraine. Ukraine's military said Saturday it was holding the front line in the eastern city of Bakhmut, despite facing what UK Ministry of Defense described as increasingly severe pressure. Russia has spent months trying to capture Bakhmut, and its forces blew up a key bridge and supply route linking the city to a nearby village. This was last Friday. And Kyiv says it plans to use assets seized from Russian banks to compensate Ukrainians and rebuild communities devastated by the invasion. Now, the United States has announced it will transfer military equipment worth up to $400 million to Ukraine, another aid package to aid its defense against the invasion. This one features ammunition and support equipment to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs. Now, this one, since the United States has so far sent over $30 billion worth of gear to Ukraine, this is the 33rd package being sent over, and this one includes additional ammunition for the high-mobility artillery rocket systems, additional 105 millimeter and 155 millimeter artillery rounds, additional 25 millimeter ammunition. Also includes armored vehicle launch bridges, which are vehicles designed to accompany armored columns and give them the ability to cross rivers, streams, ditches, and trenches. Bridges are carried on the chassis of the armored vehicles and launched at river or stream banks. Once the crossing is finished, the vehicle can pick up the bridge on the far bank and carry on. The package will also include demolition munitions, equipment for obstacle clearing as well. So another big military aid package heading over this time, if these interesting, armored vehicle launch bridges.
Well, that precedes the tanks that are going. The German Leopard tanks seem to be there in more quantity. U.S. Abrams tanks are going to take a while. But the ammunition that right now it seems to be critical because of the intensity of this battle that you described, where the Russians are using both the regular forces and the Wagner, private army that they've hired to fight for them. And so it's been pretty intense. Supposedly, the report we had was that the Ukrainians were surrounded on three sides, but they were holding out and they were keeping the road open that allows supplies to come in and also provides an exit route should they need to. But they seem to be holding their own against a very fierce Russian campaign against them in that town.
Indeed, and switching gears a little bit to Taiwan, the U.S. has approved more arms sales to Taiwan, including $619 million worth of munitions for F-16 fighter jets, and a decision likely to get another point of friction between U.S. and China. Now, the State Department said in a statement that it has approved the sales of missiles to be used for F-16s, as well as equipment to support the missiles, which includes AGM-88 anti-radiation missiles, as well as air-to-air missiles and launchers. Taiwan is unofficially supported by the U.S. and has a fleet of F-16s bought from the United States. Once the arms sales are approved, delivering them can take years, and Taiwan has cited consistent delays in receiving weapons that it has purchased. The arms will be provided by Raytheon Missiles and Defense and Lockheed Martin Corporation. And there was a previous arms sales to Taiwan that we had to talk about on the show. But another big arms sales to
Some
Taiwan.
homework for you, Jack, is you got to find out what an anti-radiation missile is.
Yeah.
Because normally a missile is an attack element going after maybe a radiation target. But an anti-radiation missile, I'm curious a little more about what that might be.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Sounds like maybe a missile that can withstand radiation or some kind of other weapon.
Okay.
That sort. But we'll look into that. According to Eli Ratner, the Assistant Secretary for the Indo-Pacific, China will not attempt to invade Taiwan before the end of the decade because it understands the high cost. This is according to, as I said, Eli Ratner, the Assistant Secretary for the Indo-Pacific. He was speaking at the Hudson Institute as an event last week. He cited the administration's position that People's Republic of China is the only country with the capability and intent to overthrow an international border. But in last year, Washington, its allies and partners have built up capabilities to ensure that kind of coercion and bullying from threats of attacks interfering with transiting aircraft and shipping doesn't succeed, as he said. And he termed what's happening regionally as a breakthrough year for alliance and partnerships in countering China's military and territorial ambitions, and pointed to Japan's decision to ramp up defense spending and worth on counter-strike weapons, and the agreement between the U.S. and the Philippines to establish 4 new sites for the Island Republic for U.S. forces, and the progressive technology sharing agreement between Australia and the United Kingdom and the U.S. Now, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin also doesn't see any imminent Chinese threat to Taiwan. Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Patrick Ryder said Thursday during the press briefing, but because of threats from China and North Korea, the U.S. is increasing the number of exercises it conducts in the region. The Marine Corps' Marine Littoral Regiment Formation and Navy's distributed forces will be the key to increasing regional security and cooperation. He said, and Ratner also mentioned steps the U.S. Army has taken to update its mission in the Indo-Pacific, and the Air Force's search for dispersed bases for its operations. So now it sounds, according to the Pentagon, they're not really too worried about an imminent threat from China, but keep an eye on that.
Well, they've got to build to prevent that, and one of the actions taken by the administration was the agreement with the Philippines to have 9, you might call them micro bases, spread out around the country. This just came out about 3 weeks ago. It was overshadowed by the balloon incident. But yeah, I think China realizes that if they were to attack Taiwan, like it has been depicted in some of the sci-fi movies and books, that would create a world war. And there's no way to really do a small-time operation. It would be a major conflict. And the United States is dependent on Taiwan for semiconductor chips. The best semiconductor chips are made in Taiwan right now. So we'll be back in a minute.
All right, you've been listening to the CAMBS Radio Report on WVOX AM 1460, heard around the world on WVOX.com. We'll be right back after this brief Fox News break, so stay tuned.